Kia ora koutou katoa and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this session of the Thriving Cities webinar series. My name is Rachel Nepia and I'm the Program Manager for People, Cities and Nature, and I'll be your host for today. This webinar series explores what it means for cities in Aotearoa New Zealand to create truly thriving biodiversity. And today's session is all about approaching urban restoration from a Kaupapa Māori perspective, empowering local iwi and hapū and working with them to reconnect with the whenua by encouraging engagement with Maramataka and Mātauranga. On this topic today, we'll hear from two people that are bringing this approach to large-scale urban restoration in Taranaki. Sera Gibson leads practical restoration efforts through the Taranaki Mounga Project, working to restore native ecosystems at scale. She connects community, iwi and science to deliver impactful conservation outcomes. Presenting with Sera from the beautiful Taranaki is Bruce Clarkson. Bruce is a leading figure in urban ecological restoration with a career dedicated to reversing biodiversity loss in cities. He has developed national strategies and frameworks guiding restoration across Aotearoa New Zealand. After Bruce, we will have time for some questions, so please use the Q&A function at any time to ask your questions, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. So I'll turn the time now to our presenters, Sera and Bruce.
Tēnā koutou katoa, he uri ahau o te Aotearoa ngā rewahine me te aroa, ko Sera Jane te Aotearoa Gibson tōku inga, he pau tohu mātua taurua ki te tau o Sean Zilches o te Kaupapa Māori ki te tau o Bruce Hookey. Nei rata mihi kia koutou I tēnei rā. Kia ora everyone. Really privileged to be speaking with you here today on the kaupapa of He Kawa Order alongside Bruce Clarkson. This relationship between Taranaki Mounga and Bruce and his collective at Waikato Uni has been going for a long, long time. Bruce's knowledge of Taranaki Mounga has had a lifetime far beyond mine, so it's really privileged to be working alongside Bruce. In 2017 was the first time that we connected on restoration of the Mounga as well as the urban landscape, and that has grown right through till today. Taranaki Mounga was set up in 2015 as a large landscape scale project partnered between the Taranaki Iwi Chairs, Te Papa Atawhai, Toi Foundation and Next Foundation, and that has just completed its 10-year of outcomes and is looking ahead. And interestingly, the Mounga has, as many of you will know, has just settled on 30th of January, which brings a new movement for ngā iwi o Taranaki and caring for our Mounga and restoring our Mounga. As we know, that's set up Te Tōpuni Kōkorangi, the face and voice of our Mounga, who will be setting strategic priorities for restoration of Te Kāhui Tupua. So this talks about the partnership that we've been working with for the last 10 years. So Taranaki Iwi Chairs Forum, those parties that I mentioned earlier, and People, Cities and Nature, which is the collaboration with Bruce and his team at Waikato University and other universities around the world. Plymouth District Council, also a key partner as we work to restore our urban landscape, which is also actually the restoration of our Mounga and in the essence of Te Kāhui Tupua. This is our context and a bit of our understanding around the collaboration that has been occurring for the last 10 years with Taranaki Mounga, with MPDC, New Plymouth District Council, with Taranaki Regional Council also, and the layers of control that have been established, primarily all of the network, or 70% of that network is fostered and maintained by the community. So it's a huge public-private partnership of restoration across a landscape which is our maunga, 270,000 hectares of Te Kāhui Tupua.
Yeah, so kia ora koutou. I'll introduce you to that ecological setting, if you like. And it is important to understand that we've been approaching this as a landscape scale issue. So while urban ecology is one of the focuses of our work, we are setting it within that broader context, because we understand that in order for it to be successful, we also need restoration to occur at landscape scale around the city. And so this is our little resource inventory, if you like, and it is a bioregional approach to restoration. This is the ecological district, formerly known as Egmont Ecological District, but now Taranaki Mounga Ecological District. And the boundary of the national park, Te Papakura or Taranaki, is shown there, the 35,000 hectare national park. To understand restoration in Ngā Motu, New Plymouth City, you need to understand the whole system that it's set within. And restoration will only be successful when we deal with it at a landscape scale. So I've been helping iwi in Taranaki for a very long time and working alongside Sera, and it's that complementary approach of the ecological knowledge combined with the Mātauranga, and all of that coming together to inform the process of restoration. So we have quite detailed information. We have done reconstructions of what the system used to be like before humans arrived in Taranaki. And the most important part of understanding how to restore in Taranaki, first of all, is to recognise it's probably the best climate in the whole of Aotearoa New Zealand for growing native bush. So we have lots of things on our side, a mild climate, a reliable rainfall generally, but we also have to pay attention to the bioclimatic zone that we're operating in to be successful. And the coastal and semi-coastal zone is characterised by rather different native bush than the lowland zone. And the diagram here is just introducing you to the bioclimatic zones of Taranaki Mounga, all the way from the coast up to the summit at 2518 metres above sea level. So you can see that the different combinations are evident on the graph here, and the shift from coastal and semi-coastal forest merging into lowland forest, starting at about 150 metres above sea level and cutting out at about 450 metres into the lower montane zone. By now you're well within the national park, and then of course the crowning glory of the Maunga itself, the alpine and subalpine zones there. Most of our efforts, of course, are focused in the coastal and semi-coastal zones, because they are the areas where biodiversity depletion has been greatest. And particularly in the urban centre, the need to reconstruct, not just restore and add to the existing resource, remembering that the resource in Ngā Motu, New Plymouth, proportionally is better than any city in Aotearoa New Zealand, at almost 9% remaining in dominance of native vegetation, but also to do the reconstructions needed to reconnect the korowai, the corridors, the cloak of vegetation that once characterised the whole of the Maunga's ring plain.
Bruce. And not only is it important to understand those bioclimatic zones, but the species that reside within and migrate through those zones is something that we focused on as a group, in understanding what and when those trees were fruiting and flowering, and what species were migrating through those zones at what time. We have a very unique landscape here in Taranaki, where we have all 6 bioclimatic zones, which provides a wealth of biodiversity within the Taranaki region. So just a few examples are there. So the kukupa or the kereru, which solely the tawa is reliant on this particular manu to be able to be distributed. The tawa fruits in February and March, and that's when the kukupa or the kereru will be moving through the corridor at different times of the year up and down our maunga of Taranaki. The korimako as well, we understand that the kōtukutuku is flowering at 400 metres elevation in November and at 1,000 metres elevation in January up by Dawson Falls. That's anecdotal evidence that's come through from actually Renee Davies from District Council, who's been diligently observing this particular manu from her backyard, and then also up on the Maunga. Piharo, its elevation was able to reach an elevation of 300 metres when those bushes are coming, and it manages to get up our corridors, our awa, and their longfin tuna can go right up to 1,150 metres elevation. So you can see there that based on the different climatic attributes of each of these zones, what it provides for our terrestrial and our aquatic species. We were fortunate enough to have a beautiful student on board who I know she's on this call today, Tere Moana Porta Rawiri. She led a survey of a certain area within this work, and she done a lot of research to understand the mahinga kai within a certain quadrant of our maunga, as well as the old ancient martyr sites that are located throughout that quadrant. She undertook a survey of that area to identify all of the rākau within those remnant areas. A lot of those areas, they have names and they have whānau that connect to those places. And it's that knowledge that we understand. It talks to an abundance and a diversity that today, in a very modified environment, we aspire to get our landscape back to that abundance. She spent a lot of time walking up and down the landscape to do that identification, and then developed a maramataka of those species within those remnant areas, and identified the fruiting and flowering times of those particular species across the bioclimatic zones that you see there. So the coastal, semi-coastal, and part of the lowland area. This is a fascinating tool and resource that we now use to understand when those manu species are flying through these bioclimatic zones and up and down our tupuna maunga of Taranaki. This now takes it into the planning realm and how our district plan, our New Plymouth District Council plan enables a lot of the work that we do. So not only are we restoring our maunga, we're restoring our maunga within the urban district now, as we extend that korowai out past Papakura Taranaki, out to the coast where it once resided many years ago. So we've worked with Renee Davies and her planning team to ensure that there's provisions within the district plan that enable community to restore their place. And so a strategic priority, which is nestled in here around the national environment, talks to that sense of place and identity. It talks to providing for the social, economic, cultural and well-being of community and future generations. It talks about the integrated management of water bodies and coastal environment with all councils and tangata whenua, and then tangata whenua being able to exercise their customary responsibilities as mana whenua and kaitiaki And lastly, there, Te Mana o Te Wai being an intrinsic value of the ecosystem and a life-supporting capacity that is provided for. So we're very fortunate here in Taranaki, based off the collaborations that we've been working on for many years here, that our planning system now provides for that restoration action. And so as we're restoring within the urban area, we're actually restoring our maunga now. And that collective movement from our community is becoming more apparent, as a lot of our groups who have for a long time restored landscape, they're now working as broader collectives. To commit to that vision, we're actually restoring the korowai of our tupuna maunga now. And I feel in Taranaki we're quite a fortunate region of really active communities. So looking forward, this is just a glimpse of time. We know that we've got a lot of work to do, as Bruce said. There's the context that we sit within. Our maunga is broader than 270,000 hectares. We know that it extends further, but the ability or the place that we're restoring here is that ring plane. So urban restoration is actually maunga restoration is the key theme throughout the project that we've been working on. The orientation of planning frameworks is also a key part for restoration. Without those two things interlinked, it becomes two separate things, but you need to build that collaboration and community to ensure that movement is enduring. That planning framework, as I just mentioned for the district plan, needs to integrate mana whenua as kaitiaki. It needs to acknowledge the mātauranga that they have, the connection to place that they have, because inevitably that's the level of restoration that we as a community want to or aspire to achieve, as connection of people back to place, but also within that restoring back that native biodiversity at that place. There's many things, as we know, that benefit people when you're within that type of setting where there's lush biodiversity. It also has a direct relationship to your hauora or your health. Assurance and regulatory tools need to be in place to secure that restoration effort, and then also to be able to bring in different partners too who can help to super boost that work, because we know we've got a big ambitious task ahead of us to restore Te Kāhui Tupua, which extends beyond Papakura, Taranaki, and beyond our ring plane. And that's the presentation. So he huia te mangi nui ki a tupu whakarituritu te toi a te kawa ora. This particular whakatauki talks about clearing obstructions to let the well-being flow. And really, this is the essence that we want to build within this movement today and into the future. So, nei rā te mihi ki a koutou, ko tēnei te kōrero mā Māui tēnei rā I pānaki ko tātou maunga Taranaki, nei rā te mihi ki a koutou.
Thank you so much for sharing your mahi with us. Please put your questions into the Q&A box, and it would be great to hear more about this work from Sera and Bruce. So yes, please put your questions in. While we wait for those questions to start coming through, I wanted to ask Sera, what is something that you are most proud of that has come out of your mahi?
The most important thing for this work, and what really makes my job amazing, is bringing in our rangatahi, our young ones, to do this work. So Tere Moana Porter, her work was intrinsically a huge part of this study, and it was on, allowed her to come home, allowed her to connect places that she has whakapapa to, and then lead within her pukinga. Other young ones that we've brought on board, and they're still with us and they're leading the project forward, are Tane Houston, Levi Christie, Cheyenne Klenner, who is also a student that worked with Tere Moana. Those young ones and them leading forward this movement has been the best part of this work for us.
I agree. I've met some of the rangatira that you've been working with, and hearing these stories about their personal growth and development, it's just so rewarding to hear. It's that fostering the intergenerational movement towards conservation and restoration that's going to make a huge difference in the cities that we're working in. We have a question from Rawiri Walsh. He said that over the weekend he saw miro ripening 6 months out of season on Tararua. What seasonal changes have you been seeing, and how does this affect your restoration planning?
It's a good question, Rawiri. We have definitely seen some differentiation between the seasonal stuff that we have looked through documentation to our actual survey, which I think this changing environment, the Maramataka is still a living tool, and I think it always was a living tool, but it helps us determine what we plant when we plant it now. So I think the planning is important to have that connection and understand what is happening within the places you need to restore to ensure that your planting effort is accurate, and it's actually going to I guess survive within those areas that you plant.
I think that brings up a really good point of one of the real strengths of your work is the historical knowledge that you have that has informed the plantings and the work that you've done. And how do you think that historical knowledge that you have has helped with your restoration planting, and how have you used it?
Yeah, thanks for that, Rachel. We have, in our early work, Tere Moana and I and others, we understood the native collection that was here at the time of the survey, and we thought, actually these raka are really robust. They're still in the landscape. They have the ability to reside through environmental change. And so that helped reinforce a lot of the planning and the planting work that we did. So when you reflect back and you understand there's 200 years of history and some of these raka are still present and is still going strong, you understand that genome of those plant species is resilient. So it's important to reflect back and understand that data and that knowledge to inform restoration moving forward.
Thanks, Sarah. We have another question here from Sarah McFarlane about how your partnership got started. I think you've mentioned a few times in your talk how well positioned you are in Taranaki, and I think people want to know, where's the starting point? How did things get off the ground? What was the turning point? And was there a particular group that brought the need to the table?
Oh, that's a great question, and a question that is asked quite often. And I don't think there's any science to the way in which collaboration and partnership has been formed up within this setting, but there's a common denominator here, is that our whole community reveres our maunga, and that was a point of partnership in the early stages. Te Papa Atupai and our iwi chairs 10 years ago just sat down, I think one hui, with Puna One O'Brien, Darren Ratsana, Hemi Sundrin, and I think Jamie Tuta, and maybe Gareth Hopkins was there. They had a discussion around what was ahead for the maunga, and that was settlement. They had just started the early negotiations for Taranaki Mounga, and our negotiators at that point in time, Liana Potu, Jamie Tuta, Hemi Sundrin, Tihi Daisy Noble, and John Hooker, they knew that they had a period of time to work through the settlement arrangements, but they also understood that there is an importance to have a vehicle that was operational, that our whānau could connect with and work in and lead, and that was the formation of Taranaki Mounga that coincided with the early start of settlement. It was based off a partnership with our iwi chairs and Te Papa Atupai or DOC, and from then it formed into the broader landscape scale partnerships, including Taranaki Regional Council and our district councils as well. So it's been a 10-year relationship, really, all based on our relationships with our maunga.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. One final question in your last minute. What would you say was easier than you expected, and what was harder than you expected in the mahi you've done so far?
I don't have anything that was hard. I don't think the stuff that was easy was connecting to the kaupapa. Everyone from all walks of life connects to the kaupapa of their maunga. So that was a easy place to start when you're talking about restoration and what that looks like for different facets of the community. The challenging thing is probably what is the journey forward? Because we're at a point now where Taranaki Mounga has completed their 10-year no regrets with the stages 1 and 2, and now moving forward in a settled context where we have our face and voice entity of Te Tōpuni Kōkorangi, and we have all of our iwi that are settled now. What does restoration look like for our entire community? We've got some learnings that we understand from the last 10 years, but collectively looking forward, what is that challenge, if I could frame it that way? What is that challenge that we want to commit to and work collectively on?
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Bruce. Ngā mihi for your kōrero today. And thank you to everyone who's joined us. We really hope that you're leaving with some fresh ideas to take into your own work. Our next webinar will be at the end of this month, and we'll explore the hidden world of functional microbes in urban restoration with Craig Lidicote and Casey Keswuda. Until then, kia pai tō rā, and we'll see you next time.